So welcome to the Aramir Trading Group 1. Today is the 26th of May, 2020. Hope everyone had a good Memorial Day and long weekend. A little shorter trading week this week. I see Mark Ansel's here. Let me see if I can unmute you, Mark. Maybe not. You have to unmute yourself, it looks like. I don't know if you're there.
Hey,
Looks
Tom.
like it. Oh, there you are. Hey, Mark.
How you doing?
Good. So for
I
those
heard
who
you
don't,
guys talking about the new equipment. I've got a new headset on today too. I just wrote a review on it at Amazon over the weekend.
oh, this is an aviation headset. It's for
Oh,
flying.
okay. No, mine is not that. Mine is for
Yes.
enjoying my music.
Yeah, the David Clark one's like a $900 headset.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the aviation stuff gets expensive. But anyway, for those who don't know, Mark is running the Night Owl Trade Advisory, and we talked about the prices and stuff, and we thought we'd lower the first month for everyone. So we thought it's been a while since Mark's talked about Night Owl to everyone. So Mark, if you want to talk about it, share your screen, whatever, the floor is yours essentially.
Okay. You mean right now or later in the meeting?
You can do it now.
Well, I'm completely unprepared, so I guess I'll just talk off the top of my head. Well, for those of you who are not familiar with Night Owl at all, Night Owl is a mathematical model that I began developing back in 2011 and have used in trading for the past, 5 years, give or take. Night Owl trades in two markets, Euro currency futures and crude oil futures. We have advisories here at Aramir for each market. Night Owl features a very high accuracy percentage. I don't have the numbers in front of me, Tom. I know I put them in an email yesterday. As I recall, something like 24 of the last 26 crude oil calls and 14 of the last 16 Euro currency calls have been accurate. When I say call, I mean predicting direction for the day. Night Owl is a day service. We go flat every afternoon, no later than 4 p.m. Eastern time. So every night I run the model and come up with projections for the next day and make a projection as to the direction each market will go. And I recommend price points at which to take an entry. And Night Owl always provides a stop loss as well. One other feature of Night Owl that makes it fairly unique and definitely enhances its accuracy is a concept called dynamic targeting. I'll explain quickly here the meaning of that and then turn it back over to Tom. It's his group. Dynamic targeting means that Night Owl will make an adjustment to our profit target if market initially goes against us, which is to say that Night Owl takes most of its entries on a retracement. So if we want to go long, for example, Night Owl will look for a pullback to the downside at which to take an entry. But if we get a downside larger than what I have projected as our initial entry, eventually we will reach a price where Night Owl will make an adjustment to our target. It doesn't want that target to get so far away from us that it becomes almost impossible to reach. So those are predetermined price points as well, and all of that goes into the nightly post. So if you were a subscriber, you would see that, oh, if market goes backwards by more than X amount, I'm supposed to adjust my target from this price to that price. And it does that for a few price points along the way, just in case we get a really deep retracement. And it's the sort of thing that will keep your trade alive and even allow you to come out with a profit maybe shorter than what we were initially looking for, but it's better than just keeping the target price fixed and never getting there. which would otherwise be the case. And that's why we call it dynamic targeting. And it also, again, contributes to the higher accuracy because it keeps the target price relatively close to where we're at, as opposed to letting it get too far away. It does require a little bit of work on the part of the night owl trader because you need to make those adjustments in price. But I advise traders, if you have a sophisticated trading platform such as Thinkorswim, I've done this on Thinkorswim. I do it on Trader Workstation at Interactive Brokers. And there are others. You can do this on Ninja. So there are others out there. Cunningham Trading Systems is a fourth one. I can't think of what the name of their platform is, but that's a fourth one where you can enter what are called contingency orders. Basically, it says if price equals X, then do this or that. You know, you can tell it what you want to do. And so you can use your trading platform if it has that sophistication. If it does not have that sophistication, you can use the electronic simulator that's built into most trading platforms nowadays, basically to do the same thing, that if price backs up to a certain level, send yourself a text message or an email that just says adjust target from this number to that number. It takes about 10 minutes of time to set that up each evening, and that's the amount of work that the night owl trader needs to do. So that, in a nutshell, is Night Owl. I guess we can field questions during the meeting if anybody has interest in that. Otherwise, Tom, I'll turn it back over to you, and you can guide your meeting however you wish.
Oh, well, I guess it's a little bit different than the normal U.S. equity options trading. So maybe talk about a little bit the process every night for the people who are subscribing to it.
Okay. Well, I'll back up just a little bit more than that. Typically at around noon Eastern time, I begin my daily homework process. Night Owl is a mathematical model. That does not mean it's 100% automated. In fact, it is to a great degree manual. The calculations I make in various apps, mostly Excel, but to some degree Ninja. But I have to pull it all together manually. That homework process can take anywhere, and this is me working now, not the traders working, but that process will require 4 to 6 hours of my time every afternoon. So the goal is that by 6 p.m. Eastern time, which is the Globex Open, I can post to the Night Owl blogs at Aramir the nightly recommendations for euro currency and crude oil, whether we want to go long or short, and where we want to enter, where we put our stop, and where we hope to take our exit. So as a trader for Night Owl, or as a subscriber to the Night Owl service, you would receive in your email at 6 p.m. Eastern time, plus or minus maybe, I don't know, 15 minutes, what the play is for the next day. And when I say day, I need to emphasize something. Unlike equity options, which trade North American time from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., as I recall from decades ago when I did those, commodity futures trade around the clock. They trade around the world and they trade around the clock. So most of the Night Owl entries will occur during the nighttime, hence its name, Night Owl, owl referring to its accuracy. As far as the exits are concerned, they can happen anytime. We've had recent trades in crude oil that have lasted under 5 minutes because we've reached our target price so quickly. And the crude oil target is typically in the 50-cent area with crude oil at present prices. And the euro currency target is typically 20 to 25 ticks at current prices. And a profit can happen that fast. That's not typical. More typically, the entries will occur fairly early in the session. And by early, I mean usually before Hong Kong begins trading, which is 8 o'clock Eastern time. But the profits can they happen anytime. And again, if you're using, since we have predetermined profit targets, you can enter those in as limit orders or MITs for when the market may get there. And that could happen absolutely any time at all. But I would say most typically they don't occur until sometime after the Europeans begin trading, which is in the 2 to 3 a.m. area, again, Eastern time. But sometimes profit may not even occur until the North American period. But more often than not, by the time North America begins trading euro currency at 8:20, we're flat. We're done for the day in euro, and 9 o'clock for crude oil. Not always, but typically. Today, for example, we had no trade, but it would be typical to be flat at this time to be done for the day. So what you will do, you'll get the email. It gives what I call a price array. And this array, I don't have anything to show. I wasn't expecting to be doing any kind of presentation today. So you kind of have to hope you can use your imagination for this. Or
I could probably pull up one.
you could pull up one. We didn't have one for today, Tom, but we had.
I can just look at an old one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Last week, I think we had a trade on euro on Thursday.
Yeah, so
we haven't had a crude oil trade for a couple of days, but euro, I think we had one on euro. We had a target C acquisition. I believe that was on Thursday.
Here, I can share my screen. I think this is
okay.
This is one.
Yeah, there you go. And this is.
See if I can make it a little bigger too. There we go.
June 21, or I mean May 21, whenever that was.
Thursday.
That was Thursday. Okay. So this was a trade that was successful. I'll explain why there are so many lines and letters and what all that means. Do I have control of this with my mouse, Tom, or do you move it?
I think I move it. You can probably annotate it if you want.
I have no idea how to do that. I'm not proficient at using Zoom. I'm fairly new to Zoom.
Yeah, there's an annotate button. It's probably easier if you shared your screen, but this is fine. We can just talk it through.
Yeah. Let's look over at the far left edge, and we'll see the capital letter S, Sierra, and yeah, you've got it, Tom. Yeah, of course, that means we're going short. We're looking for short. And there are two lines that have little symbols beside them, the at line and the tilde line. The idea is market, of course, closes at 5 p.m. For Globex, 5 p.m. Eastern time. And the tilde line and the at line almost always will bracket whatever that closing price was. And we can see up above, last price at 1700 was 0953 half. And you'll notice that price, that number, falls between the tilde line and the at line. What we are hoping to achieve is a retracement from the open that will go to the at line. The 0959 in this case. Most of the time that's what happens, but sometimes we get such a small retracement at the open that we have to rely on a stop-based entry at the tilde line so we can realize something out of the setups. So, but assuming that we get the at-line election, because again, 90+% of the time that's what will happen, we would be short from 959. Okay, now down at the very bottom, there's a note that says setups will expire at the election of target C. Okay, so what that is telling us is that if we got our entry at the 959 short side, we are looking for an exit at target C, the 915. That's what we're going for. Okay, that's the ideal trade for this setup. And that would be, what, I'm doing the arithmetic in my head, 44 ticks.
Right.
44 ticks. So a little bit more than $500. 44 times $12.50 for anybody who's got a calculator handy. But here's the thing about dynamic targeting. Oh, there you go.
There you go.
$550. Okay. So if we can minimize the calculator, Tom, because this is the point I want to make about dynamic targeting.
There we go.
This is one of the key concepts of Night Owl. Let's suppose that after market elects that 959, it doesn't just turn around and go our way. Instead, it keeps going. And it elects the next price, which is 963. Tom, can you put a circle around 963? Yep. This is the key to dynamic targeting. Market initially is going against us. Well, now it's gone against us 4 ticks, and now it's starting to get kind of serious. When that 963 elects, we need to change our target from the original 915 to 921. If you can, Tom, I guess they have some means of typing in a question or something if they don't understand where these numbers are coming from. Because again,
there's a chat.
Okay, otherwise I have to assume people know where these numbers come from. Okay, so Tom has highlighted with the pink the new target, the 921. That's the target C.
Wrong one.
Yeah.
This one.
That's, yeah, underscore or underline. That's the target C that corresponds to 963. So we're pulling the target along in the direction of market just so we can stay fairly close to where market is. Now, if market continues going against us to the next price, 970, we do the same thing. The new target would be the 926. And this is the process that you can program into your electronic simulator on your trading platform. Basically, it says that if 970 elects, send me a text message. So I'll know that, oh, I need to change my target from 921 to 926. And you can even put all that language into the text message if you want to. And I kind of suggest that because if this happens to come in the middle of the night, all you have to do is read the text message and you know what you're supposed to do, as opposed to trying to figure it out if you're half asleep. I mean, this takes all of, to set these alerts up in your texting capability in your trading platform only requires maybe 10 minutes at most in the evening. Okay, so if this keeps going, eventually there's a stop. Above the words short reversal, you'll see something that says unfaded stop loss line. It looks like Tom's about ready to circle that or underscore it. Yeah, there you go. Yep. And it tells you the stop loss line for this setup is 4 lines behind the at line. Behind means market has to go against us. So in this case, it would, and behind is always going to be down in these arrays. So you just count down from the at line, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can see the stop line. Tom has put an arrow at 981. So that's our stop line. Let me pause here just for a moment. Here's another key concept of Night Owl. Night Owl uses square of 9 prices. I won't go into the detail tonight of how to calculate, or today I should say, how to calculate a square of 9 price. Night Owl has a Excel spreadsheet that calculates square of 9 prices beginning at 0 and up to about 153,000. And that's without regard to where the decimal point goes. So ignoring decimal points, we're in the 109,000s right now with Euro. So we've got quite a few prices above us and below. So I'll address the question in a moment. I see there's a question that's just popped up. So let me finish my sentence and I'll address your question. Getting back to the concept I wanted to emphasize. With the square of 9 prices, they may be new to you, especially if you've traded options and not futures, but they're fairly commonly used in futures trading. And therefore, big money accounts, meaning institutional investors, tend to front run square of 9 prices. So for example, if the idea for us was to short the 959, I strongly advise my subscribers to fade their entry prices by 2 ticks. So instead of trying to go short at 959, you put your entry at 957. Give the market its due. Let the market have those 2 ticks. Occasionally the 959 won't elect. The 957 will elect, the 959 will not elect, and you'll have your trade. Whereas somebody who's trying to be cheap, as I call it, holding out for the absolute square of 9 price, they may not get it. Do the same thing on your exits, and for the same reason, because institutional traders will front run those prices, and market may turn in front of that 915 target. And so our exit will come at 917. So I fade all the entries and I fade all my targets by 2 ticks on each side. I let the market have 4 ticks, just again, paying market its due. Now, I guess there's some way for me to go back and answer all the questions. So let me pause here because it looks like there's several questions piling up, and I'll try to do.
Well, not too many.
Okay.
Steve asked the square of nines, which it is, and
Yes.
then
Square of 9 is a mathematical concept that dates from the ancient Egyptians. It predates logarithms and slide rules. It's what the Egyptians used to build the pyramids. And it's something that W.D. Gann adapted to trading back in the 1920s. At least he gets credit for it. There may have been others before. I don't know. I'm not going to get into the history of the thing. But they are commonly used prices. And these prices that we see in the array, this is an array we're looking at. These prices are all square of 9 prices. You don't need to know how to calculate square of 9. That's not part of learning how to operate Night Owl, and it's not education that I will provide. Just accept that the prices that we see here all came out of the Excel spreadsheet I wrote back in 2002 that will calculate square of 9 prices beginning at 0 and going up to 153,000. Okay.
yeah, Steve said he understands the square of nines.
Okay, good. Okay.
So he had a question: if we bought at or shorted at 90.63, would our stop have been at 97?
No. The stop is fixed. Unlike dynamic targeting, where we're keeping the target as reasonably close to market, the stop price is fixed. So the stop price will come off of, in this case, that 981 line, because that line is 4 lines behind the at. Just count down from the at, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you get to the 981 line. Now, I also advise fading the stop line, and for the same reason, because these are highly popular prices, and therefore we want to stay out of the way of institutional traders, with their big elephant-like footprints that they leave. We follow along with them in the same trade, but we don't want to get crushed by their footprints. So we tend to stay out of the way. So for a 981 stop, my own stop will be behind that 987 line. I'll go a full line below. In the videos that I made for Capital Discussions a few years ago, I think I talked about using a 3-tick stop. And that's fine. You can do 3 ticks at 984. It'll cut your risk down. But I am just, call me paranoid. I don't like getting stopped out, and I will put my stop even farther away. This is just Mark Ansel talking now. This is, bear in mind that Night Owl, I cringe when people call Night Owl a system. Night Owl is a mathematical model. It tells us where the stop line should be. It tells us where the entry line should be, but how much fading we want to do, that's really a personal decision. And I know I've got some subscribers who just don't fade at all. They don't like giving anything away. I get it. 4 ticks multiplied by 20 trades a month, now you're talking about, a couple $100. And that can be significant. But I try to pay the market its due. And so I will fade entries, targets, and stops. The stop always goes in the opposite direction of our trade. This was an issue with a subscriber a couple months ago. He was fading his stops, but he was fading them in the wrong direction. So he was getting stopped out when Night Owl did not. So if our stop line is 981, you want to have your stop 984 or higher. Not lower, higher. You're always going for your stop fade. You're always going in the direction opposite our desired direction. Okay, so let's see. Dave Redding's got something here about YouTube video. Oh, okay, yeah. He's provided us a link with using square of 9 in various settings.
And then
Marcus asks, is Night Owls the dominant topic? Well, I don't know.
I said
Tom,
just as long as it takes. Yeah.
Okay, that's really up to you, Tom, because again, it's your group, and I'm just here, or thought I was going to just be here as an observer. Today is my first time in the group, and I just kind of came here to see what it was all about.
Oh, welcome, by the way.
Well, thank you. But be that as it may, if people want to hear about Night Owl, okay, I'm happy to talk about Night Owl for however long people want to hear about it. So we've talked just a little bit about how to read the array, how to determine where your target should be, and where to place your stop. Now, you see, there are a lot of other letters and prices corresponding to those letters. Night Owl typically will advise exit either at target Bravo or target Charlie. For those traders who want to go for more, or for those who want to split their exits, you know, like taking half off at Charlie and half off somewhere else, I've provided the various prices from Alpha all the way through Foxtrot as to where those square of 9 prices are. I do suggest once someone has become proficient at reading the arrays and becomes comfortable in using Night Owl, I personally suggest that even when we get to the target, which is 80+% of the time, leave some on. You know, if you're playing 3 contracts, take 2 off at the target and just let 1 ride. Why not? You know, you're basically risking the house's money at that point. So you don't have your own personal funds at risk anymore, so to speak. I mean, the trade hasn't closed yet. We don't have a closing price for the day. So that money has not been credited to your account anyway. So why not use the house's money? And, you know, every once in a while, we'll get a huge day. You'll get a home run day where we might enter at 963 and market will go down into the middle 8s. We have that kind of day going on right now in Euro in the other direction. We've gone up over 100 ticks from the opening price Sunday night. So when we have those kinds of trades, it's nice to have a trailing contract out there that can pick up some of those points. And we've seen a lot of that lately in crude oil. It's not quite as frequent right now in Euro, but crude oil definitely has the volatility for doing that kind of thing. I didn't say anything about the tilled line. I don't like taking entries at the tilled line, but sometimes it's as good as it'll get. The idea of the tilled line is that if market does not retrace to our at line before it goes in our direction, at least you can take an entry at the tilled line and get something out of it. So in this case, the tilled line was at 937. So you'd go short on a stop at 937. And your target Bravo in that case is going to be however far market retraced before going down. What do I mean by that? Well, let's see, market, oh, I don't have the opening price here, and I don't know where the opening price was on what would this have been? This would have been Sunday night. Oh, let's see, I guess I have it here to my left on my own screen. Euro opened Sunday night at 897. Oh, I'm on the wrong day. Well, whatever the opening price was, we'll just say it was 954. It was probably somewhere around 954. So we were looking for a retracement at 959. If market only got to 954 before going the Night Owl direction, our target price would be the target C, target Charlie for 954. That's 910 according to our array. Again, I know I'm rattling off a lot of numbers here, so anybody who doesn't see where these numbers come from, put up your hand and we'll go back. Tom has just marked what I'm talking about. Again, if market only retraced to 954 before turning around and going in the night owl direction, short side, then we would use 954 target C, which is 910, as our targeted exit. That's what that note at the very bottom means. It says setups will expire at the election of the target C following election of its respective square of 9 entry price. So if 954 is as good as it got before market started going our way, then when we get to 910, these setups expire. 910 being the target Charlie for 954. When we get there, this setup expires, and if you were holding out for 959 and didn't get it and did not take an entry on a stop at 937, well, whether you want to try for something else, that's up to you, but Night Owl will be done for the day. Okay. I can't emphasize that enough about splitting your exits and not letting your whole position go for the home run. I guess there are those who might do that. I like to use a third. Again, that's just me. That's not a Night Owl rule. Night Owl doesn't make those kinds of decisions. Night Owl strictly tells us direction, entry price, and stop price. Tom, I interrupted you.
Oh, I was just going to say, I know you don't have a trade on now, but what would you say on an average month for crude and oil? Crude and euro, how many trades would people kind of expect to see?
Between the two markets, we'll have around 20 trades. So it averages out to about 1 per day. Lately, we've had more euro setups than crude oil, although last month it was the opposite. We had more crude oil than euro. But the idea of having the two markets that are not heavily correlated with one another is that we tend to get an average of one trade per day. I think it's slightly less than that. It's like 0.95 or something like that. Rough. So you're going to have in a 21-day trading month, you can expect 19 or 20 trades.
And then how often would you say, I know you send out the messages at around 6 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you send other messages throughout the night?
I will send a message when we achieve the target. Somebody asked me once if I did that to celebrate the win. No, it's not that at all. Here's the reason I do that. Large money traders trade Night Owl. There are traders of Night Owl who are not here at Aramir. For example, there's an investment bank in London that trades Night Owl. Well, they have very deep pockets. And what they actually do is they will take an entry on every line. They will take the entry on every line that elects. So 959, 963, 70, 75, up to 80, 81. They'll have an entry on every line. So the purpose of the exit advisory is to tell you, or to tell the traders, that Night Owl is done because we elected a target Charlie. Therefore, since Night Owl is done, if you still have any active orders for taking entries, cancel those orders because they might elect. Market can certainly turn around and go back against the Night Owl direction. And if Night Owl is done and you didn't cancel your entry orders, you're going to be on your own because Night Owl's done. So that's the purpose for that exit advisory. It's to let everybody know, hey, Night Owl is done. We got to the profit target. If you've got orders working, cancel them. The only exception being if you're trailing a stop because you're following my advice to play a third of your contracts just to see how far you can go before getting stopped out, and maybe you'll even make it to the end of the day and end up with a home run. But that's the reason. And so those will come anytime, because again, the target can occur anytime. I have no control over that whatsoever. We may hit the target in 5 minutes. We may not hit the target for 12 hours or 10 hours, something like that. So I will send that out when after that happens.
And then like it says at the bottom that you go flat no later than 4 p.m. Eastern. So you never hold it overnight.
I never hold night owl trades overnight. That's by design. That goes back to the bank that I traded for at the time I was developing Night Owl. They required me to be flat at 4 p.m. Eastern time. We have an affiliation here at Aramir with Top Step Trader. That's a different bank, but I believe they have the same rule. I think they require that traders must be flat either by 4 o'clock or maybe it's 4:10 Eastern time.
Yep.
Then you can re-enter at 6 p.m. They will allow you to re-enter at 6 p.m. But by then, Night Owl will have a new setup, and it might be in the other direction. You know, so you don't want to be in your trade after 4 p.m., especially if you're trading for a bank, because they'll penalize you. And in the case of Top Step, they'll make you start over. You know, they're pretty heavy-handed about that particular violation. That if you are not out of your trade by 4:10, and that's their rule, they will require you to start over to qualify for trading capital. Most are not that heavy-handed, but they may penalize you. The bank that I traded for would actually penalize us. It was $5,000 per violation. So, you know, it definitely got your attention. So that's the reason that Night Owl goes flat every night. And again, it's also as a result, we may be short one day and we may be long the next day. We had a day like there, we had a series of days like that last week in Euro, where we turned around from one day to the next and got the profit going back the other way. You know, we took it when it went up and we took it again when it went down. Basically the same trade, except in the other direction.
Oh, I know Dave Redding's here, so maybe Dave, you're following Night Owl. If you have any questions or comments you want to add, that'd be great.
Yeah, Mark, thank you for all the work you do here. It's nice that you joined us.
Dave, I'm happy that you're doing so well with Night Owl. I hear you're doing really well. And I remember when you first wrote to me, you had several questions, and I hope I answered all of them satisfactorily. I guess you learned something because you're doing well with it.
Yeah, well might be a stretch, but I'm doing okay.
Good.
It is interesting when you know, the market just gaps up and the whole thing's over, and you know, a half a dozen ticks or whatever. I think I'm more letting the market open up and, you know, seeing how it's working through your table numbers and kind of maybe delaying my entry, you know, just getting a feel for what the market's going to do that first hour or two. One of the things that I've talked with Tom about in other forums is it seems like there's times through the night, and I don't know if it's when the market rotates from, you know, the U.S. over to Australia and Japan and then on into Europe. But it seems like there's certain times where there's lots of activity in particularly the Euro, that like 10 p.m. time frame plus or minus U.S. Do you have any insight as to why that happens at those times?
Well, in the case of Euro, the European banks begin trading at 9 o'clock Central European time, which Eastern time is 3 a.m. So we typically don't see a lot of activity in Euro before then. I take the approach of establishing the position, and my mentor back in the 1990s was always preaching that with me: establish your position, establish your position. I heard that all the time. So consequently, I will typically take the entry early in the evening, you know, in that 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. entry, 6 p.m. 8 p.m. time frame, I mean, even though more often than not, market will retrace against us for a ways. In this setup that Tom put up from last Thursday night, market did retrace. As I recall, the ultimate election was the 963 line, and then it went our way. But sometimes it will go deep into it, the 975 line in this case, for example. again, this is now Mark Ansel talking. This is, I have to emphasize this, Night Owl only provides an entry price, a stop price, and a direction, period. The square of 9 pricing, you know, in between the two, that's just what I do. And also in my case, I like to take an entry in front of the stop line. So if we had retraced to 975 on Thursday night, I would have taken an entry there as well. So I would have been short the 959 line and the 975 line. Again, that's just me. Because at 975, your reward to risk is substantially better. The stop remains fixed. It's behind that 981 line. So if I'm entering at 975 and I've got to stop at 987, I'm only risking 12 ticks. You know, 12 ticks is $150. So not a whole lot of risk as compared to going for target C, in this case at 931, 44 ticks, $550. I'm risking 150 to make 550. We have a Night Owl trader who trades for Top Step, and her approach to this, Dave, is even, I don't want to say cautious. I mean, it's a cautious attitude, but she plays only the line in front of the stop line. So she may only get 2 or 3 or 4 entries per month. But her reward to risk ratio, like I just said, she's risking 10 to 12 ticks to make 40 or 50 ticks. And most of the time she gets those wins. And when she doesn't, she needs 4 losses just to completely offset 1 win. You know, so even at a 50% win rate, she's coming out ahead, very much ahead. That's her approach. My point is, I put these arrays out there. It's not like, oh, there is a rule that somebody can only take an entry at the at line. I went through this with subscribers who joined the service in January. For some reason, as a group, they had this idea that they only could take an entry at the at line and they were not allowed to do anything else or vary in any kind of way whatsoever. And that's not Night Owl at all. The strength of Night Owl is the flexibility. Night Owl is anything but rigid. The at line is the recommended line. That's the expectation of Night Owl, that market will retrace to that line before going in the Night Owl direction. But if you want to be more cautious and instead play a line behind that at line, like in this example, the 963 or the 970, who am I to say that's wrong? I can tell you, based on 8+ years of observation of this is not something I formally tracked. This is kind of a seat of the pants observation, that the average retracement from the at line will be 2 lines behind. So in this case, you know, if you want to play the average, you would have your entry at the 970 line. That's the average retracement. But that means about half the time you're not going to get that retracement. You know, and again, I hear my mentor preaching to me in the back of my head all the time: establish your position, meaning that we take the 59 fully expecting it's going to retrace to 63 or 70, and then we can take an entry at 70 again if we want to. In my case, I do it at the 75 if it goes back that far. So one can adapt Night Owl to whatever they're comfortable with. If you're somebody like the lady at Top Step, that she doesn't want to risk a lot, but she wants to go for home runs, okay, well, take your entry at 975 with a stop somewhere behind 981. You know, risk 10 to 12 ticks to go for 50 ticks, but just accept that that's only going to happen 3 or 4 times a month, and she's fine with that. You know, I mean, it allows her to have a nice little extra income, and she hardly has to do anything. She doesn't even have to do the process with the simulator that I was talking about earlier, because she's only putting 1 entry out there. She's putting an entry out at 975, targeting 931 with a stop behind 981. If that elects, then her trade is on, and either it gets to 931 or it doesn't. it either will then finish somewhere in front of 931 or it'll stop out. So all she has to do is a very simple entry, limit order for 975, an OCO for 931 or wherever she would put the stop behind 981. And that's it. That's all she does. And she walks away for the rest, for the next 22 hours. And whatever happens, happens, just to be sure that she's out by 4:10 p.m. So if you want to be a little more cautious and play behind the at line, you will not hear me say that is wrong. That is a personal decision that every trader needs to make. How much risk are they willing to take versus how much reward do they want to seek? There's no way I can know everybody's individual reward risk parameters. No way. With regard to going for target Bravo or target Charlie, that's a decision that Night Owl advises over a fairly long period of time. We've been going for target Charlie now in crude oil for about 2 months. Whereas ever since I brought Night Owl to Aramir back in autumn of 2018, if I'm not mistaken, we've gone for target Bravo with Euro for the whole period up until just, I think it was this planning note, I think was the first one that we had going for a target Charlie. So this is not something that varies a lot from one day to the next. When Night Owl decides that we should hold out for target Charlie, that's the kind of thing that typically stays out there for weeks or even months at a time before it may revert back. There was one case, this was before even the capital discussions days, when Night Owl was going for target Delta. That doesn't happen very often, but there's nothing to say that's wrong. Market will elect target Delta approximately 3 times out of 8. And given that Night Owl gets the direction right 80+% of the time, if you want to hold out for target Delta, 80% times 3/8 is what? I'm not good at the arithmetic. It means you're going to get to target Delta about half the time. You're going to make your target Delta about half the time. Well, so hey, again, I'm not going to say what that's wrong. Night Owl is just putting out there a recommendation. It's actually minus the reciprocal, so 30 minus 80 is going to be the 50.
0.3.
Yeah, and then you subtract that from the 80% probability of profit. So anyway, so you're getting to target Delta about half the calls. That's what we're getting at here. About half the calls will actually make it to target Delta. And bear in mind, that's not the target Delta for your entry. That is the ultimate target Delta, a la what the note at the bottom says, that once market stops retracing and goes in the Night Owl direction, that's the target Delta it's looking for. If it retraced 1 line, then you're looking for the target Delta 1 line behind the at. If it retraced 4 lines, then you're looking for the target Delta 4 lines behind. It's the dynamic targeting. That's a constant in Night Owl's dynamic targeting. Night Owl has always used dynamic targeting. Okay, anyway, other questions. Do I teach my method or is it a black box? Well, you're learning how to read the array. I do not teach the homework that I do every night. Only one person in the entire world knows that beside me, and that's Jim Riggio, formerly of Capital Discussions. And Jim is for those of you who know Jim, he's an extremely intelligent guy. It took him about 4 months to grasp it all. And he paid a very dear price for that. It's not something I teach. The process is not something I teach. You will learn from doing the nightly price arrays how to interpret the array, and in essence, you're learning how to trade. For those who don't know how to trade futures, you're learning how to trade, because again, we're playing numbers here. We know that the target Delta market will achieve our ultimate target Delta 3 times out of 8 approximately. and it will achieve our target Charlie approximately half the time, and our target Bravo approximately 2/3 of the time. So we know those numbers, and again, adapting those numbers to your own personal reward to risk tolerance is ultimately what makes sense. So you're learning how to trade. I'm going to go off on a tangent here for just a second. Learning how to trade. I advise everybody who is new to futures trading to enroll at Top Step, even if you have no intention of trading for a bank. Top Step will allow you to use their trading platform to learn how to trade. Now, they will impose their rules on you. For example, Top Step will not allow you to take more than a 2% loss per day. So that's very tight. The bank I traded for allowed 5%. 2% is as tight as I know about. So if you're trading $150,000 in simulation on Top Step Simulator, 2% of 150 is 3,000. They will not let you take a loss greater than $3,000 in a day. My point is this: if you learn how to trade futures on Top Step's program, you can trade for anybody, absolutely anybody. Because if you can succeed with them, you can succeed with anybody, even in your own trading capital. It teaches you discipline. That's the point I'm trying to make. You have to have the discipline. You have to acknowledge when you're wrong. So you can use the arrays. You can say, well, if I take an entry at 959 and my stop is, let's say, at 984, that's 25 ticks. 25 ticks is $312 a contract. You know that if you get stopped out, you're losing $312 a contract. So if you're trading 4 contracts, in round numbers, you're losing what? $1,250. That's a little bit less than half of Top Step's daily loss limit. That is reasonable. It's reasonable to risk $1,250 in a day. You don't want to be over trading, and Top Step's requirement of no more than a 3% daily loss limit will keep you from over trading. It will keep you from developing bad habits, playing more contracts than you should, that sort of thing. Because this is definitely not what professional traders do. Professional traders do not risk the farm on a trade. I personally don't like to trade more than 10% of the available capital to me. And that's the attitude of a professional trader. You learn that when you trade for a bank. You don't trade heavy lottage. You just don't. And Top Step will not allow you to do that because they have such a tight daily loss limit. So that's why I advise everybody to at least use their simulation program to learn how to trade, to keep yourself from making the rookie mistakes such as grossly overtrading your account. Let's see. Steve's got a question here. If we put a sell stop at 963, 970.
I think I already answered that.
Oh,
one.
okay. We did. Okay.
I think just the last one, not to be morbid, what if something happens to you in the middle of a trade? That was the last question, I think.
Well, I guess you're meaning if I keel over and die.
Or yeah, you're unavailable for some reason.
Yeah, sure. You already will have the parameters, at least for that night. Because in this planning note, this Thursday, 21 May planning note that we're looking at on our screen, this is what the nightly post looks like. So from my talk today, and if you listen to the videos that are on the Aramir site, you know that we're looking for an entry at the at line or faded by 2 ticks. You know from reading at the bottom that we're targeting Charlie. If we were targeting Bravo, it would say faded target Bravo instead of target Charlie. So you know that we're looking for an exit at the first target Charlie to elect, and you know that the stop is, in this case, 4 lines behind. Now, bear in mind that 4 lines, that was for Thursday night. I don't know yet what it will be for tonight. It might be 1 line behind the ad. It might be 6 lines behind the ad. It changes from night to night, but it remains fixed for the rest of the session. So if something happens to me during the middle of the session, you already know where your stop is supposed to be, and you know whether you're targeting the first Bravo or the first Charlie to elect. So you're good to go. You're not reliant on me to tell you, oh, we've reached our exit, so take off your position now. Again, my purpose in sending that notification out when we do elect our target Bravo or Charlie is to remind everyone, if you've got any live orders working, cancel them, because that's such an easy thing to forget to do otherwise. Okay.
All right, well, I think that's all the questions, Mark.
Okay. Well, we do invite you to explore Night Owl. We just, this weekend, we began, you may have mentioned this, Tom, we've begun new pricing. We're introducing Night Owl to everyone for $99 a month for both markets.
For new subscribers, yeah.
For new subscribers, for new subscribers for 1 month, allows you to kick the tires, so to speak, and see for yourself the high accuracy that's there, and whether it's your cup of tea.
Oh, great. Well, we're just about out of time anyway, so this is probably a good time to wrap it up. So thanks for explaining how Night Owl works in a little bit more detail. It makes the price array a little bit less of a mystery.
Yeah, I know it looks intimidating. You see all these numbers and you think, oh my gosh, what do I do with all of this? So it's really a matter of just knowing how to interpret it, because there are really only a handful of numbers on that array that are important. The entry price beside the at line, pay attention to the number of lines behind the at line to identify the stop line, and whether we're targeting the first Bravo or Charlie to elect, and that's it.
Yep, pretty simple. All right, well, I guess we'll wrap it up for today. No roundtable this week, and we'll hope everybody has a nice short week with the holiday we had yesterday, and hope you're all refreshed. And we will see everybody next week. So thanks again, everyone. Thanks, Mark. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Steve. Appreciated all your questions. And Dave, I'm glad you interjected your own bit of experience in there. Glad to hear it's worked for you.
All right. We'll see you, everyone.